that it adheres to its container. So if you put air in a container, it'll move around in order to fill the space of the container. This is what he means by wet. Hot, we know what hot means, it's just temperature. Okay, this is kind of a simplistic model, but now that we see that the form is very important, the Greeks weren't really stupid, silly, archaic people, and this model isn't an archaic, fun, simplistic model. This was coming to a really big truth. Actually, okay. And once again, people say like fire is kind of just energy, and I don't know. We see that all these are different, but all of them are kind of similar too. They all are comprised of the same qualities. Okay, let's look at chemistry really quick. Every element is comprised of different orbitals. What are the orbitals that we have? There's the s orbitals, the p orbitals, the d orbitals, and the f orbitals. What an orbital is it's just an area in which electron is most likely to be found probabilistically. Each one of these is different, but they all kind of build on top of each other. So I should have emphasized this more, but once again, this is a holistic model. So the second quadrant encompasses the first quadrant. The third quadrant more encompasses both those quadrants before it. The fourth quadrant encompasses all of them. So the fourth quadrant will have elements of all the quadrants more. Okay. Now, once again, I forgot to mention, with the four elements, the Greeks also said there was a possible fifth element. We always have this. They said this possible fifth element was, I think it was ether, but other cultures have said that it was space. Some cultures say it was life was the fifth element. And what they did, the way that they got this element was they combined hot, cold, dry, and wet all into one. And they say this is the God element, like the godly element. The fifth is always godly. So we have SBDF. Okay, so and then we have the possible G. Scientists say that there definitely could be a G orbital, and they should be able to make it, but they haven't made it yet. The fifth is always questionable. They say it should be there, but okay. If you can go on and on and on and on. Let's look at the sociology one. So sociologists say that there's three races, but there's really a fourth. So the way that they do this is they say, let's look at four qualities, or two dichotomies, actually. So we have inferior and superior, and insider, outsider. Two dichotomies. When we combine these, we get four types of people, races. The race that is the outsider but superior is the Asians. The reason why I say that why she says, the person who came up with this model says that they're superior, is because we look at them as hardworking, and they try to, kind of like wet it with air, they try to fit into their environment. They don't try to mess things up too much. They're not doing wild, crazy things. This isn't true. This is necessarily, but this is the way that they're looked at, right? Stereotypically. Now, outsiders. But how do people look at Asians? They say they're weird. Asians they're just different. I'm not saying this. I'm saying that this is what the stereotype is, that they're weird, that they're, look at their customs, they eat different types of things, they have these strange rituals that they do. They're outsiders. Okay. Then white is the insider, superior. So once again, by superior, I mean, you know, they're hardworking, whatever. Insiders, yeah, they belong. Not necessarily, when we thought about the Asians being outsiders, also deep thinkers and stuff. Not necessarily deep thinkers, more down to earth, so and so. In the third quadrant, we have black, inferior, insiders. So black people are seen as, they're insiders. They're not necessarily deep thinkers. They're cool, like, hey, we want to hang out with black people. They're insiders. They're not thinking of complex stuff. They're not having these are stereotypes. But they are, so they're insiders, but they are inferior because they're not trying to fit into their environment. They're doing things like they're doing crimes. They're rebellious. They're trying to break out of the system. Not necessarily a bad thing. There needs to be this third quadrant, disillusion. But these are stereotypes. Within everybody's an individual. We get to this hopefully more later. Okay, then the fourth quadrant, I forget the name of the woman who made this, but she didn't put a fourth quadrant, but obviously there is a fourth quadrant because there needs to be another way to combine these. But once again, when you see the fourth is always not mentioned, or often not mentioned. But there needs to be a way to, combine these qualities. So we have the inferior outsider. Who's an inferior outsider? The brown people. So in America, that would be the Mexicans. Or in Florida, it would be the Cubans. In all these places, the brown people are the inferior outsiders. So they're outsiders in that they're not really trying to fit in so much. They do crimes. And I mean, okay, actually no, they're inferior because they do that. They do crimes. They're not trying to fit in. They're outsiders because they're also weird. Because, you know, maybe they're more deep thinking. They have their, you know, strange rituals, incense types of stuff, whatever. Okay, so now once again this is how we look at race. And then there's a possible fifth. Let's just say that the possible fifth is the Jewish person. We'll just say that. The fifth one. Alright, now another example of this, and then I'll just do a few more, and then we'll get back to the model, is sexuality. We have homosexuals, heterosexuals, bisexuals, and asexuals. Homosexuals, they're more outsiders. I'm not going to get into too much because we don't have too much time, but I'll go through it quick. Homosexual, outsider, superior. Because people, when they think about homosexuals, they often think that they're, you know, people usually think of them as hardworking and stuff. And this is stereotypes, right? And people think about homosexuals like they dress nice and they're hardworking and they're not, you know. Okay. Heterosexuals are the insider superiors. Bisexuals are the insider inferiors. And the reason why I say insiders is because a bisexual person, you can't really tell necessarily he's bisexual. He can fit in, he can be with the guys and stuff, and he's doing his thing with the guys, but once they figure out, oh, this guy is bisexual, they'll look at him as inferior, but they'll still tolerate him. But they'll just be like, hey man, but just don't touch me. Asexual, outsider, inferior. People, and once again, the fourth, is there really such thing as an asexual person? The fourth just doesn't seem to fit ever, the fourth quadrant. But there is such thing as an asexual person, maybe. Okay. Gender has the same pattern. There's 4 types and a possible fifth. Classes throughout history, every culture has divided classes into 4 sections with a possible fifth. And just one example would be the Hindus And their possible fifth class was the untouchables. Ages, like the Hindus divided the ages into four stages. Yeah. In every culture. But okay, let's get back to the model. Is there any other ones that I want to show really quick?
I think you're good.
Okay. Okay, so back to the model. So let's do the first quadrant within this part. So we have, okay, so about a year later I thought of this quadrant. Actually, 2 weeks later I thought of the second quadrant part right here, but about a year later I thought of the first quadrant, or at least I solidified it. So in the first quadrant I wrote sensation, perception, once again, duality. The third, response. The fourth, awareness. Now, yeah, so I was saying sensation, perception. I took a class in psychology called sensation and perception. This is seen as a duality. And well, it is a duality. People say these are separate things. But really, once again, are they so separate? They're very intertwined, very interconnected. We have a duality. Response. So, okay, well, let me give the definition of sensation first. So sensation, we have stimuli from the environment, information from the environment, and it's transduced by certain faculties. And what happens is these go to your brain, and your brain is ultimately going to interpret them, and that's going to be perception. Now, one thing I